What's going on, guys? Dare here with Fantasy Football Advice, coming at you with another fantasy football video. Today, we got a good one for you guys. In today's video, we're going to be going over some potential 2021 breakouts. We know exactly how much you guys love these top player at every position videos, so we've incorporated that. But on top of that, since it's August, I did want to take it one step further. How am I going to do that exactly? Well, in today's video, instead of just giving you the one breakout at each position, I'm going to give you the top 3 breakouts in my opinion, letting you guys know which one I think is the strongest breakout, the top breakout, but also so we can analyze a couple extra players at each position as well. This way, if we've already talked about a player in a recent video, or if I do feel there are some strong honorable mentions that deserve to be brought up, which there always are, we can hit on those players while also hitting on the top breakout because fantasy drafts are right around the corner. With all of that being said though, let this be your daily reminder to like the video. Hitting that like button is the #1 way to show your support, so if you do enjoy our videos, be sure to hit that like button, and if you're new to the channel, maybe you haven't subscribed yet, consider taking today as an opportunity to do so. We're on the road to 100k subscribers. Our goal is to reach that by the start of the NFL season, and with that now being about 1 month away, we're definitely entering crunch time. Speaking of crunch time, fantasy drafts are right around the corner, so if you're someone who may have put off your draft research, or maybe you just want to take your game to the next level, one way to be more than prepared for your draft is by signing up for our draft package. Not only will you gain access to our tier-based rankings that house our sleepers, our targets, our busts, you'll also gain access to our player projections, risk ratings, video player breakdowns on the top 150 players, access to our private Discord community group, and more. So if that's something that interests you, you should definitely check out our website. It's thefantasyfootballadvice.com. Link as always in the description box below. With that being said, it's time to move over to our stat of the day. Yesterday's stat of the day was who is the youngest tight end to catch a touchdown pass last season. The correct answer was actually Cole Kmet. Congratulations to Ren Reginaldo, the first to get this right on YouTube. And as for Twitter, at Pierce821. Once again, congratulations to both of you. But as for today's stat of the day, among wide receivers with at least 10 receptions in a game last season, which player had the best game in terms of yards per reception? Once again, that's among wide receivers with at least 10 receptions in a game last season, which player had the best game in terms of yards per reception? Leave your answer in the comment section down below. We'll be happy to let you know who wins in tomorrow's video. Alright guys, without further ado, it's time to hop right into the video, and as per usual, we'll begin with the player listed on the thumbnail. Some of you may not be 100% familiar with exactly who that player is because it is an incoming rookie, a rookie that plays at the running back position. That's right, the player is Travis Etienne of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Like I had mentioned though in the intro though, I do want to throw in 2 other players that I strongly considered for breakout candidates this season. The obvious choice, Najee Harris, which is the reason I opted to avoid him in this video. We've already talked loads about Najee Harris throughout this offseason. He's also a running back that's going to be drafted in the first 2 rounds. Don't get me wrong though, we love him. He's safe. His workload is guaranteed. He's going to get work in the receiving game, be on a team with a potent offense and even stronger defense. On top of that, between Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, and Juju Smith-Schuster, the Pittsburgh Steelers have one of the more talented wide receiver groups. And while that may not directly benefit Najee Harris and at times could work against him, I strongly believe that overall it will benefit him because defenses can't sell out to stop the run. Also, having strong wide receivers will assist in putting this team in scoring position frequently, setting up big plays in the run game. So although Najee Harris does have a subpar line, I think he has virtually everything else going for him. But like I had mentioned, he is a far too obvious pick, so I did opt not to choose him. The other obvious running back that's a rookie we could choose from is Javonte Williams. Definitely a player I was more strongly considering, especially because the ADP between Travis Etienne and Javonte Williams are only separated by a mere 5 spots. Travis Etienne coming off the board as the running back 22. Javonte Williams has now shot all the way up the draft board to the RB 27. I'd be a liar if I didn't say that early camp reports didn't play partly into why I didn't choose him as the top breakout. While there's no denying that the team likes Javonte Williams, they weren't happy with the production they were getting from the RB position last season. At this stage in the offseason, we are getting slightly conflicting reports out of camp, whether Melvin Gordon is going to be the starting running back with Javonte Williams playing the change of pace role, or if that's going to be flipped like we thought in the earlier portion of the offseason where Javonte Williams would play the 1A to Melvin Gordon's 1B. Due to that fact, I definitely view Travis Etienne as the much stronger breakout candidate between the 2 running backs. While it may be a positive sign that the team went up to get Javonte Williams while still having Melvin Gordon on the roster, roster. The same, if not more, can be said about the Jacksonville Jaguars, who invested even heavier draft capital into Travis Etienne. But even comparing Melvin Gordon's 2020 production to James Robinson's 2020 production, it's a massive statement from the Jacksonville Jaguars that they do have an intended role for Travis Etienne right out of the gate if they're willing to invest so high in the running back position, a position that they already filled last season with a running back that was playing very successfully. In fact, James Robinson is the sole player we can thank for an affordable ADP on Travis Etienne, coming in at the RB22. Many people, due to the success of James Robinson in 2020, are simply avoiding Etienne when he still makes a solid target where he's going in drafts. The projected role for Etienne that we just discussed the Jacksonville Jaguars had in mind when drafting Etienne, expect that role to be heavily in the receiving game, Etienne proving to be an outlet for the young and developing Trevor Lawrence. For any of you out there who may not know or may be unaware or maybe forgot, Travis Etienne, Trevor Lawrence, they did go to the same school, so this is going to be a level of comfortability for Trevor Lawrence. And with Etienne being a running back who received 60 targets in his senior year from the aforementioned Trevor Lawrence, pairing his receiving skill set with the chemistry already developed between Lawrence and Etienne is going to be a combination we should see pay dividends right out of the gate. For that reason, when comparing the breakout of Travis Etienne to Javonte Williams, Etienne should be more immediate and right out of the gate. Javonte Williams likely going to be a player that takes some time to really earn his role, at least from the early reports. And if I'm looking for the top breakout, then I'm looking for a player who's going to be producing at a high level week 1. Alright guys, we're changing positions and we're actually moving to the tight end position, where the player pool is massively diminished. But despite that, outside the top 12, I still see 3 very valuable tight ends that certainly have the potential to break out in 2021. 2 of them I've already featured in previous videos, one as early as last week, so we'll start with him. It just so happens that this player has the lowest ADP out of all the tight ends. It's Kmet of the Chicago Bears. In the beginning portion of this video, when we did stat of the day, the question of yesterday's stat of the day was who is the youngest tight end in 2020 to score a receiving touchdown? The answer, unsurprisingly, Kmet. He's heading into his 2nd season, and typically with tight ends, it's a position that takes some time to develop. We don't typically draft rookies outside of a select few. Kmet on a Chicago Bears offense did not make the cut last season, but what we saw from him in 2020 was very promising. We saw a player who was involved early and often, who developed his skill set while also growing his role in the offense over time, ultimately reaching a pinnacle at the tail end of the season, even producing his best game in the final week of the season. Regardless, drafting players based on last year's production is not going to be a winning strategy, but it was still very promising to see Kmet carve himself out a role, and heading into 2021, we certainly think he can build upon that. Believe it or not, over the past few seasons, the Chicago Bears have actually been on the higher end when it comes to passing volume teams in the league, and with the receiver room in Chicago shrinking, Anthony Miller is no longer a Chicago Bear, he's a Houston Texan. And while that's not massive news for Darnell Mooney, who had already advanced ahead of Anthony Miller on the depth chart, when it comes to Kmet, a player who's establishing himself in this offense, that's very positive news because Kmet could actually finish 3rd on this team in targets now with Anthony Miller out of town. For a rookie tight end who is receiving 6+ targets per game over the final 5 games, that's very promising news. Definitely brings in the chance to break out if the Chicago Bears decide to feature him, especially in the red zone. But moving into the runner-up on the potential breakout list, it's Adam Trautman of the New Orleans Saints. Adam Trautman is another tight end that we had featured in a previous video so far this offseason, but this was definitely before the Michael Thomas injury. Why exactly were we so high on him before? Well, because of his massive size, he fits well on this offense, standing 6'5", 255 pounds. In addition to that, he boasts a phenomenal agility score, ranking in the 95th percentile. And while his rookie stats were a bit underwhelming, finishing with 171 yards and a lone receiving touchdown, he did catch 15 of his 16 total targets. And one thing that we did learn throughout last season is that this is a player that Sean Payton really likes. When it comes to players that Sean Payton likes, they typically get playtime. That's why you could see Adam Trautman playing on 37% of special team snaps last season. And with the Saints beginning the year without Michael Thomas, one of the team's lone big-bodied receivers, Adam Trautman could play an even more pivotal role in this offense than we initially expected. This is a very positive sign with an offense going through many transitions, trying to find key players to perform, and we cannot deny the fact that historically the New Orleans Saints have been one of the more friendly teams when it comes to tight end production. Alright guys, in the moment you've all been waiting for, the top tight end target when it comes to breakouts, breakout, none other than Irv Smith Jr. of the Minnesota Vikings. When it comes to Irv Smith, making a case for him is extremely simple. Whenever we've seen Irv Smith on the field and getting the snaps, getting the volume, this is a player that we have seen perform. Unfortunately for Irv Smith though, his early career production has been limited, playing behind Kyle Rudolph, a veteran who definitely earned his role in that offense, but by the end of it, we were definitely all lobbying for Kyle Rudolph to take a backseat, paving the way for Irv Smith to have his potential breakout. And with Kyle Rudolph now a New York Giant, this seems to be the season we'll finally get to see Irv Smith featured in the offense. The only thing potentially holding him back is potentially Tyler Conklin, because as easy as it is for us to say that Irv Smith should play on 90% of the snaps, one thing we have to know about the Minnesota Vikings is that they do have playoff aspirations. Keeping their players healthy is definitely one of their top priorities, and when it comes to the tight end position, it's typically a position that does deal with more injuries than others. So Irv Smith, definitely a player they want to have healthy down the stretch, and one way to do that is by rotating in Tyler Conklin. And if Tyler Conklin ends up carving himself out a sizable role, then that would definitely eat into the production of Irv Smith. My personal take though is that once both players are on the field, Irv Smith is going to be making plays, and those plays are likely going to be leading to more playing time, especially in close games and tight situations. And with the drop off in production we saw from Adam Thielen last year, in addition to the exit of Stephon Diggs and the rise of Justin Jefferson, this offense is going through many transitions, so I wouldn't be surprised for them to lean on Irv Smith a bit more than most people would expect. Alright guys, we're moving into the next position, the wide receiver position, and believe it or not, it was a bit harder to find this position's top breakout than you would have thought. When looking for a breakout at wideout, you really don't have to look far. The obvious choice is a wide receiver that's actually being drafted inside the top 12. I know, sounds pretty crazy for a sophomore, let alone a sophomore who has yet to crack 1,000 receiving yards. Yes, that's right, I'm talking about CeeDee Lamb. Now, obviously, it would be a cop-out to use him. Everybody is expecting him to break out. And while I can't say I'm absolutely a fan of his price tag, I definitely think his increase in ADP is warranted. While he has not technically broken out in many people's eyes, I think anybody who owned CeeDee Lamb last year definitely felt that they could trust him down the stretch. He posted high upside games, was the team's leading receiver in many circumstances last year. And although the sample size we saw with him and Dak Prescott was a bit limited, but regardless, there is a massive gap in talent when it comes to Dak Prescott and Andy Dalton, as well as the other quarterbacks that were starting for Dallas last season. So whether CeeDee Lamb can produce or not really shouldn't be of all that much concern. The main concern should be on whether the targets are going to favor that of CeeDee Lamb or Amari Cooper. But at this point, with Amari Cooper sidelined and CeeDee Lamb getting valuable reps in training camp, in addition to CeeDee Lamb getting valuable reps at training camp, those fears at this point should be null and void, so CeeDee Lamb is a player primed for a breakout. Like I said though, that one's too easy. And looking at the next wide receiver, it also seems like an obvious choice, Jamarr Chase. Granted, Chase is a rookie. We haven't seen him perform on an NFL field, so we can't technically call him a breakout, but I think we all can safely assume that Jamarr Chase is going to lead this team when it comes to receiving. And unlike typical rookies in a regular season where they're establishing a chemistry and connection with their quarterback and training camp for the first time ever, Jamarr Chase will come into this season with a unique advantage where he will be teaming up with Joe Burrow, who is the quarterback that he played with in college. Not only that, it gets a bit juicier. Jamarr Chase actually took the entire 2020 season off due to COVID concerns, so the last time we actually saw him healthy and on the field and producing at a high level, that was with Joe Burrow throwing him the ball. In fact, Jamarr Chase has not received any meaningful passes from any other quarterback outside of Joe Burrow. So heading into this season, although he is a rookie, he's not going to have a lot of the rookie hurdles that we typically see. So for that reason, I definitely see Jamarr Chase yet again as a cop-out. So our first two options, CeeDee Lamb, Jamarr Chase, cross them off the list. And with many of the other wide receivers being drafted in a similar range already having broken out, the only player that I can logically put in this place that I don't think is a cop-out has to be a player that I believe we're much higher on than most. It's Jerry Jeudy of the Denver Broncos. Currently, Jerry Jeudy has an an ADP of the wide receiver 32. If you followed us throughout this offseason, you'll know that we were pretty high on Courtland Sutton to start the year. Don't get me wrong, nothing against Courtland Sutton, a player who we also think is a viable target, actually being drafted one spot ahead of Jerry Jeudy, 31 versus 32. But when it comes to Jerry Jeudy, he did have a pretty successful rookie season, all things considered. Yes, he did have his hiccups and struggles, but the quarterback play really wasn't there to help him out. In addition to that, the run game was spotty at best, and although the other wide receivers did their best to make Jerry Jeudy look bad, because let's face it, KJ Hamler, Tim Patrick, each of those players did step up when their number was called, much more so than Jerry Jeudy. When it comes to raw talent and ability, you can't compare their talents and their ability to the potential upside that Jerry Jeudy brings to the table. I'm personally in the camp that Courtland Sutton returning is actually going to benefit Jerry Jeudy. I think in his first year in this offense as a rookie, he was asked to do a bit too much. This team desperately needed a top wide receiver to fill that role, but Jerry Jeudy, a player who is a bit inexperienced, I believe having him thrust into that wide receiver one spot, lacking veteran leadership, definitely took its toll on Jerry Jeudy and his consistency. Heading into this season with Courtland Sutton lining up on the outside alongside of him, this will alleviate a ton of pressure off of Jerry Jeudy so he can perform his best. Overall though, I do have to say the largest reason as to why I'm fond of both Jerry Jeudy and Courtland Sutton this year, the main factor comes down to Teddy Bridgewater likely being the starting quarterback. I have a hard time believing that with Teddy Bridgewater as well as Drew Lock competing for the starting job in camp, that Drew Lock will have any chance at beating him out. And from what we saw from Teddy Bridgewater last year, it's very promising for the fantasy weapons in this offense. Carolina last year supported both DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, and Curtis Samuel on limited volume. All were performing as top 30 wide receivers. And with both Courtland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy ranking outside the top 30 wide receivers, I definitely think this is a value spot where both players can return value. And with Jerry Jeudy being a first round talent, standing 6'1" tall, running a 4.45, he not only has the physical abilities, but also the athletic profile to get it done in Breakout for 2021. Alright guys, we're moving into the final position, that's right, the quarterback position, and I'll be frank with you, there really is a limited amount of options at the quarterback position that have yet to break out. You have Joe Burrow, who I really can't classify as a player who has not broken out yet. Yes, he went down with an injury, but before that, we saw him playing very well and is now being drafted inside the top 14, depending on which platform you're drafting on. Outside of Joe Burrow, there's really only one quarterback that's being drafted inside the top 15 that has yet to break out or play in a full season. That player is Jalen Hurts, and unfortunately, Jalen Hurts is a player that we have been a bit more down on as the offseason has progressed. Earlier on in the offseason, a player who does undeniably have top 10 upside when it comes to fantasy value, and so long as he's the starter, I feel pretty confident that he will be able to produce or at least compete for top 12 type production. My only concerns are with the offense as a whole, and if Jalen Hurts is actually going to be the player that they commit to for the entire season. Jalen Hurts has been a player that has been unproven with his arm talent, completion percentage last season in the 50s. That definitely needs to come up if he has any chance at starting, and we really didn't see any games where he completely flipped the switch and turned it on from a passing perspective. No, he heavily relied on his legs, and historically what we've seen from players like that, it hasn't been all that pretty. When it comes to players like Russell Wilson, Josh Allen, yes, they're mobile, but they're definitely looking to throw the ball downfield. Jalen Hurts, while he would like to throw the ball downfield, Philadelphia is lacking receivers, clearly not doing him any favors downfield, but in addition to that, his completion percentage isn't doing them any favors either. So overall, while he is a solid breakout candidate, he's not somebody I can recommend you draft with the expectation of him breaking out, because at this point in the offseason, I'm not all that sure that he will finish the season as the starter. Realistically, there's only one single player that I think has an extremely strong chance to break out this season, and while that may not amount to top 12 upside at the quarterback position, and if you watch my hidden breakouts video, you'll know exactly which quarterback I'm talking about. It may come as a bit of a surprise to most of you out there. He's not looked at as a high upside player, but I strongly believe that Tua of the Miami Dolphins has a strong chance to break out for the 2021 season. Like I mentioned though, a breakout for him may not necessarily mean he's going to crack the top 12 in fantasy points per game. So overall, that doesn't mean to draft him and expect him to potentially overtake your starter. But if you're in a super flex league, if you're in a super deep league and need a backup quarterback, Tua is definitely a player I think is coming in a bit undervalued. For starters, course, heading into 2021, he's going to have his best cast of weapons ever, especially in the receiving game. Starting with the weapons that are returning, Mike Gesicki, Preston Williams alongside Devontae Parker, a serviceable wide receiver and tight end group to say the least, but definitely not on the higher end. Insert Will Fuller, one of the league's most efficient wide receivers last season for Houston. If a non-PED Will Fuller can bring back some of that 2020 magic, then he certainly can bolster up this wide receiver group. Fuller actually played surprisingly well last season, but I'm not counting on him to do all that much. I'm more fond of the potential upside of the rookie that they drafted in the first round. Not only was he drafted in the first round, but taken 6th overall, this player, Jalen Waddle, he certainly brings a ton of upside to this receiver group and is certainly the future at the wide receiver position. Whether that actually translates to fantasy points for Jalen Waddle in his rookie year, that remains to be determined, but it's really not all that important. I think the most benefit from Jalen Waddle is going to be the boost that he gives to Tua. And with this wide receiver core with Devontae Parker, Will Fuller, Jalen Waddle, and Mike Gesicki, this is undeniably an extremely talented and high upside wide receiver group. Certainly enough talent to get it done against any defense. The only question is whether Tua can keep up his end. Well, when it comes to Tua, a lot of people last season saw a player who was playing too conservatively, criticizing him for that reason. I saw a player recovering from a significant injury, a player lacking mobility he is used to, the tools and the skill set that got him to the position he was. So he was adjusting, learning a new offense his first season in the NFL. And when taking into consideration all of those factors, I personally consider Tua's rookie season a success and looking forward to what he can do in his sophomore year. And if in the off chance he does gain back some of his mobility, his leash is loosened a little bit and he is able to run. One thing that we do know about mobile quarterbacks is it's the fantasy cheat code. A player like Tua can instantly go from a QB 20 to a QB 14, QB 12 just off rushing production alone. But with the addition of all these weapons offensively, Tua going from his first year injured, presumably heading into his second year more healthy, he's more familiar with the offense, he's used to the players, he's developed chemistry with these guys. All signs to me are pointing up for Tua, and I think he is coming in a bit undervalued, and I certainly think he has the potential to break out for the 2021 season. But guys, that's going to do it for this video. We really hoped you enjoyed. If you did, how about hitting that like button? If you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. Thank you all for watching. We'll catch you on the